Okay, Commissioners, the first item of the day is, oh, I'm sorry, of course.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is the public hearing, June 9th, 2015. Chair Srinivasan. Here. Commissioner Shamir Barron. Here. Commissioner Bland. Here. Commissioner Chapin. Commissioner Chen. Commissioner Devonshire. Commissioner Goldblum. Here. Commissioner Gustafson.
Here.
Commissioner Voss.
Here.
Commissioner Washington.
Okay, Commissioners, the first item of the day is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan. It's an application for 341 Columbus Avenue located within the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. Docket number 169462, a Renaissance Revival style flats building designed by Edward L. Angel and built in 1889-90. Application is to alter the storefront. This was read into the record on June 2nd, 2015. It's being presented today for the first time.
Do you have to reopen the hearing? Yeah, okay. So reopen the hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ann Jennings, Preservation Staff. This application is for 341 Columbus Avenue in the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. The proposal is to alter the ground floor storefront, including replacing infill and light fixtures and applying wood cladding over the existing stucco cladding. The existing infill and stucco cladding was installed in 1989, just prior to the designation of the district in 1990, with subsequent modifications approved by the Commission in the 1990s. The architect, Ronette Riley, is here to discuss the proposal.
Okay, hello, thank you. This is, the location of this store is the former Design Within Reach, and before that I think it was a Gap. And it's at Columbus Avenue, directly across from a school between 76 and 70, well, it's at the corner of 76. So this is the center slide is the existing facade. The side facade, which we're not proposing touching, has a masonry and it has an inset panel. And the panel is named, or the building is nicknamed the Sylvia, based on some writing on the panel. It's a brick and stone facade, masonry wall, construction, 6-story building. The street level has always been a storefront, but the condition of the original facade is unknown. The tax photo is not helpful in terms of determining what it looked like. Our storefront is on the southern corner. It shares a facade with Eileen Fisher, and to the north of that is Isabella's, the restaurant and Babette's. So they're basically two buildings on the block. Our building has no continuity in the style of storefronts. However, the whole block maintains the height break between the storefront and the upper residential level. Throughout the neighborhood, there's no consistency in storefront style, whether the building is landmarked or a more modern construction. Sort of a hodgepodge. And looking at our storefront in detail, the EFIS stucco facade has 3 bays with a centrally located door. Each storefront window bay has a limestone tile bulkhead with an aluminum window assembly, and the transom windows are obscured. Our proposal is to keep the tripartite scheme and the southern storefront window bay. However, we want to move the door to the northern bay for better interior circulation of the store. We will remove the existing EFIS and tile. There's tile underneath each window, porcelain tile, and install new storefront windows to match the existing. We will also install new awnings to obscure the existing transoms and a new exterior light. There's a precedent, I live in the neighborhood, so there's a precedent for wood-paneled storefronts on the Upper West Side, as well as color contrast between the masonry material of the buildings above. Just sort of showing examples. The wood panels, the fluted pilaster details, the paneled piers are common facade elements within the West Side Historic District. This drawing is of the existing condition with the porcelain tiles, the piers, and this is our proposed storefront. We'll have a sign. We're proposing to have a sign band at the top and to remove the porcelain tile underneath this. It's a side section showing the retractable awning, the side of the building, and then those plan details.
Is the bulkhead at the same elevation as currently? Or are you changing the bulkhead?
Keeping it the same,
Same.
not touching it. We're doing minimal work on the insides. There are existing platforms there for retail display. We're keeping the Sylvia plaque, keeping the existing stonework, the existing paint color on the south elevation. The plan details show how our wood paneling will meet the stucco facade of Eileen Fisher and the stone at the southern corner. Our wall sections show the profile of the wood paneling, which is proud of the building up to a maximum of 3 inches. There's a recessed ceiling light at the entry, which is recessed 18 inches, or actually it's recessed in, the door is recessed 24 inches. And that was to keep in line with the interior of the platform. So the door is recessed 24 inches. And then we've, in place, in lieu of the porcelain tile at the bulkheads under the windows, we have wood paneling. We have 2 entry details showing how the wood paneling above the door alcove will meet the aluminum transom windows and how the sill will meet the frame at the entry door. The awning fabric and exterior paint samples.
Yeah, we have larger samples.
And I've asked you for my office. And then this is the new elevation in the context of the block. We were asked by staff to probe to see if there were any existing original details under the stucco. We probed in numerous locations and found no masonry and no ornamental masonry and no cast iron, which was what we thought might be there. So there's really nothing left on the facade to sort of emulate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll take testimony. Sylvia Caligari.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sylvia Caligari, speaking for Landmark West. Our Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is happy to welcome a small business replacing a national chain store to our community. The proposed signage is clear and unobtrusive. The committee also finds further alterations proposed, from relocating the entrance with new concrete threshold to the addition of new exterior lighting and window displays on the avenue face, to be appropriate as well. While the committee is concerned that upkeep of the wood storefront panels and decorative pilasters will quickly become a maintenance concern, we believe it is an appropriate resolution for the street, far better than the current stucco and porcelain tile. The committee urges the applicant and the commission to make the proposed fabric awnings retractable. Installing retractable rather than fixed awnings will limit the opportunity for unsightly pigeon target practice and provide shade only when needed. On the 76th Street facade, the committee feels that stripping the stone here rather than painting it again would be more appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers on this item? Any more speakers? All right. And we have Community Board 7's resolution, which approves the application of the new storefront. All right. Comments? Questions? Any concerns? All right. Okay. If the commission is fine with this application as is, we can move to resolution, so we can close the hearing. And Fred, do you want to read that?
Yep. In the matter of 341 Columbus Avenue, the Upper West Side, Central Park West District. The application is to alter the storefront. I recommend approval, noting that the proposed work will not involve the removal of any historic building fabric on the ground floor, which has been greatly altered over time, that the design of the doors, display windows, bulkheads, and transoms is simple and well proportioned within the existing openings and in keeping with storefronts historically found at buildings of this type, style, and age, that the proposed infill will maintain the primacy of transparency, which is a significant feature of the commercial streetscape, and that the light fixtures will be well scaled to the facade in terms of size and number.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This application is approved.
Okay, Commissioners, the second item, it's an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan. It's 118 West 76th Street, located within the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. It's docket number 170584, a Renaissance Revival-style row house designed by Tom and Wilson and built in 1890-91. The application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions. This was read into the record on June 2nd, 2015. It's being presented today for the first time.
Okay, we'll reopen the hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Abby Hurlbut, Preservation Staff. The application is for work at the rear and roof of the building at 118 West 76th Street, which is located on the southern side of West 76th between Columbus and Amsterdam Avenues in the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. So there are three parts to this proposal. First is the replacement of the two-story rear L with a three-story stepped addition that will span the entire facade. The second portion of this proposal is a one-story rooftop addition with mechanical equipment, which will be set back from the front and rear facades. And the final portion of this proposal is an excavation component at the rear, which will be adjacent to the proposed addition and will not extend to the rear lot line. I'm going to take you back to show you the visibility of the mechanical equipment, which is here. So the proposed mechanical equipment at the roof will be most visible from a public thoroughfare north of the building over the front facade from Columbus Avenue at West 77th Street. You can see the mock-up here. Nothing at the rear will be visible from a public thoroughfare, and the architect is here to discuss the project.
Brian Connolly with Zitford Connolly Architects. The proposed building is this one here. It's in a block comprising primarily brownstones, although the building immediately to the west is a large institutional building. These photographs show the building in its context. The subject building is this one here. It's part of a five-group building that was done together in an A, B, A, B, A sequence. The cornice lines of all of those are intact, and we're restoring the facade and the cornice line as part of this renovation. The particular things about this building that I'd like to point out is that it has been derelict since, it's been unoccupied since 1978. It's been falling into disrepair since. And the main thrust of this proposal is both to restore the original facade and to add the extensions that Abby mentioned. You can see here the current state of the facade, and that along the building has been boarded up. These photographs show the current rear. Again, it had fallen into disrepair. The windows were lost, boarded up, and the back of the building is covered in ivy, and the brickwork is in very poor repair. The photograph here on the right, this is the existing extension that is proposed to be removed. That encroaches into the 30-foot setback. We're proposing to remove that, build a new full-width extension at the rear that aligns with the 30-foot code setback requirement. This diagram shows the block. The tan colors are the original brownstone roofs. The red colors are the buildings that have penthouse additions on them already. In the extensions on the rear, the cobalt blue colors are the original two-story extensions. The sage green colors are the ones that already have a third-story extension. The very light sky blue colors are the ones that have an additional single-story extension. Approximately 70% of the buildings in that donut have already been modified either with a rooftop extension or rear extension. Our building is this one here. As I say, it forms part of a row here, but the the continuity of that aesthetic is automatically changed by this building and this building here, which is part of the school. These photographs show the inside of the donut and just document the large amount of alterations that are already happening within this particular block. The lower photograph, you can see that a significant number of the buildings already have a rooftop addition. This photograph here shows a full 4-story addition further east than subject property. This photograph here shows a three-story addition with a 4th floor enclosed terrace. Over here we have a 3-story addition with a 4th floor parapet, not unlike what we're proposing. Again, you can see there's a lot of rooftop additions already. This diagram shows the portion that we're planning to remove, which is the red extension here. This diagram shows what we're proposing to add. It's the new 3-story extension at the 30-foot setback line to here, and at the 3rd floor, a slight projection beyond the original facade. And up here we have the penthouse addition. When we get to the section, I'll show you that we created the penthouse in such a way that it's fully below the existing cornice. This is the proposed rear extension. On the left, you have the original, and on the right, we have the new. This will be a curtain wall system with black metal framing. The same system will be used at the 3rd floor, which is set back slightly. At this level, we're keeping one of the existing openings, and we're extending the other one down to the new terrace level to form a door behind the parapet. This shows the extension in the context of the immediately adjacent buildings. And this is the proposed addition in color. This drawing shows the section as it stands today. This is not the original historic section because the building had fallen into disrepair and most of the floors were rotted and were falling out. As part of a separate application to stabilize the building, we put in new floor plates in January of this year. And one of the things we did is we deliberately stepped the 4th floor, the new 4th floor plate, so that when we added with the intention of adding a penthouse, we were able to keep that penthouse totally below the existing cornice line. That dot dash line is the 60-foot height limit, and the new penthouse is fully below that. We do, as Abby said, have AC equipment up on top. And these are the views of the mock-up over here. A mock-up cannot be seen from the avenue through the slot. However, I'd also add that it can't be seen from 76th Street, on which this building is. However, because there's a vacant lot across the street here, there is a sight line through that vacant lot to the equipment which you see here. So these photographs show the mock-up sprayed red. The next photographs, these are close-ups of that. These next photographs show what we think is a more realistic view of what might actually be seen. And again, keep in mind that these are seen through a vacant lot rather than the normal stipulation of requirement not to be seen from the street. So here, you see them, we photoshopped in the actual equipment. And it's in a galvanized metal finish, which we hope would tune out against the sky somewhat and mitigate the presence. It's nowhere near as visible as the equipment on the school adjacent to it or other rooftop additions a little further back.
Is that a vacant lot, or is that just a part of that institutional building and it's a parking lot?
It's part of an institutional building on 77th Street.
Right, is that a school, or?
I think it's a school.
Okay, so it's part of their playground, or?
That's what it seems to be used for now.
Okay.
Yes. I won't dwell on the interior floor plan. This is the rear yard as it was proposed when we first filed with Community Board 7 and filed here. The owner has subsequently got prices on the excavation, which it turns out it threw rock. So she's going to be curtailing the degree of the rear yard extension back to about here. So that's something we'll have to address separately. But at the time, this was what, when we applied, that was what the intention was. It's going to be curtailed now. And this is the drawing showing the proposed new roof and the location of the equipment here.
Can I just ask you a question? Would it be possible to move that equipment closer to the bulkhead? So that it seemed like
Possibly that would mitigate its impact to TAP.
We had to, we could certainly look at that. We did have to get a 5-foot passage for firemen through the building. Currently, they come up through here, and they have that route across there. So anything we brought over here would kind of mitigate a path around. The rest of the work is largely restoration on the facade, and we'll be handling window replacement as a separate application.
All right, questions? Yes, Fred?
Why, I mean, this is a house. Why is the equipment on the roof so huge? Normally, a split system is what is normally used, and it uses a series of small condensers on the roof. I don't understand this.
I don't believe they're any different than we put on similar townhouses. The bulk of the house is large, and I think also that basement perhaps contributed to having the third unit rather than two. But on previous projects, the two pieces of equipment are very similar to ones we've had on the roof.
So there are three dwelling units in this building?
There's three. We're probably going to end up reducing that to two because as a subsequent to putting in this application, the owner has decided to curtail the cellar excavation, and that'll reduce the air conditioning load and probably have an impact on the number of pieces of equipment that are there.
What is in that room at the top labeled penthouse? Is that a
Recreation room.
recreational room without windows, all right?
You know, it has windows. I can show you that in a section.
Look out into that valley.
It doesn't seem to be a very...
It
has a skylight or
It
something.
has,
I see.
Greenhouse
I see.
ends, and
I
light
see.
comes in on both ends.
Yeah. Good place for that equipment to go. But, okay, that was my question. Thank you.
All right, Ida, you had a question? Okay, any other questions? All right, why don't we take testimony? Kelly Carroll?
Kelly Carroll, Historic Districts Council. This is a case of where decades-long neglect resulted in an untouched, complete historic house from 1891. HDC supports this home being restored and suitable for habitability again, but feels that this proposal moves too far in the speculative direction. The building's original footprint is being obliterated by going full width in the rear, adds clumsy invisible roof bulk, and hollows out the earth beneath it. There are surely better ways to deal with the rooftop mechanicals. The all-glass rear facade and doors appear strangely commercial, like entries to retail. HDC recommends a lighter-handed intervention to this house and also a closer look at the aesthetic approach of the new design, which at the moment does not display sensitivity nor derive its design from the historic district. Thank you.
Sylvia Caligari?
Sylvia Caligari for Landmark West. Our Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is excited to see use return to the long derelict 118 West 76th Street, which has taken on its own notorious persona. That being said, our committee does not feel the decisions made after this long wait should be rushed. Our committee is skeptical as to why the cornice is a separate docket, as are the windows. Further, facade work is listed as to be filed under separate application as well. Is there any evidence that this work is certain? If so, to what scope? There is no doubt that this landmark needs a lot of attention. A disparate collection of applications does not ensure this will happen. A sign of good faith to a neighborhood long blighted by this neglected building would be to shore up the public realm. As the proposals stand, there is a lot of information about changes and additions the owners wish to make. Unfortunately, little is said about much-needed preservation. New unnamed materials will be introduced at the roof, the rear dogleg will be eliminated, the rear facade will be completely obliterated on 4 of its current 5 levels. On the 5th, just one window opening and surround will remain as the only fabric of the original design, and while the window will be replaced, there are no drawings or descriptions of said materials nor details. This proposal has not adequately addressed any of the historic qualities of this landmark. The community has been patient for decades, waiting for this building to return to its grandeur and again join the stature of its four siblings, numbers 110 to 116 West 76th Street. We are prepared to wait longer for a proper submission which cohesively addresses the building's needs along parallel tracks. We find this proposal severely lacking and thus inappropriate. Thank you.
Andrea Goldwyn?
Good day, Chair Srinivasan and Commissioners. I'm Andrea Goldwyn, speaking on behalf of the Landmarks Conservancy. The Conservancy is delighted that number 118 has new ownership undertaking this restoration project. The house was featured on the Conservancy's website as part of our endangered buildings list, which chronicled buildings that faced threats such as neglect or abandonment despite landmark designation. Of all the buildings across the city, this is the one that inspired the most phone calls and emails from many, many neighbors, from potential home buyers or investors, all amazed that this beautiful landmarked building was in such deteriorated condition. We commend those neighbors for their continued interest and thank the former council member, now Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, and her staff for bringing this sale to fruition so that the building can be stabilized, restored, and once again make a positive contribution to the neighborhood. The proposal brought forward today will do that. We hope that the facade, not part of the application today, will be brought back to its historic appearance. We don't object to the demolition at the rear or proposed changes to the rear facade. We are, however, concerned that the rooftop mechanicals and bulkhead, which will rise from the existing roofline of this building and its neighbors, will be visible from too many vantages. A playground directly across the street on the northwest corner of 76th and Columbus opens the view to a wide vista. We hope that the Commission can work with the project architects to diminish or move the rooftop elements so they're less visible. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers on this item? Okay, there are no more speakers. Community Board 7 recommends approval of this application, but they also recommend that the applicants introduce permeable paving and greenery into the rear yard.
Commissioners, could I just
Yes.
say that the restorative facade work would be handled at the staff level? They are currently working with the staff. There was a violation, I believe, for the removal of the cornice, but that there's an escrow in place, and that will go back.
Okay. All right. Are there, yes. Go ahead, Michael.
I think it's generally a quite nice application. I think that certainly the restoration aspects are fantastic, and I'm glad to hear that they're going to be handled at staff level. I think the fact that the cellar cutback is going to be reduced certainly reduces its controversial qualities a bit. I think that the penthouse being sunk down like that it was an interesting approach that is rather radical. We haven't seen a whole lot of that. And I think that the applicant could work with staff to try to mitigate the view of the AC without much difficulty. You know, you could put some of it down in the backyard. You could move it around on the roof. I mean, are these little light wells there? I mean, I think that the applicant could figure out a way to try to make the AC a little bit less visible. In terms of the rear, in the past, I have been suggesting that applicants where they have a row of these little tails that project off the building, you know, that create a character to try to retain that, or at least some suggestion of that. But in this case, I think that the applicant has shown that the block is so varied and affected, and this is a relatively modest rear yard addition by some that we've seen. I think that they've made the case that it's okay. I kind of would prefer if they would keep some remnant of the tail, but I think that this is appropriate, certainly within the bounds of things that we've approved before.
Okay. Other comments?
Question about, we don't have the packets, so it's hard for us to flip through, but can you,
No, we do? Okay, we didn't get any.
go to the plan of the penthouse?
Sure.
So at this point, this penthouse is occupiable, but in 360 degrees, right? In other words, the back and the front.
Yes, this is intended to be a useful room.
Right. I mean, I'm just wondering if, I agree with Commissioner Goldblum that we should probably work with staff to make the AC a little bit mechanical less visible, but I'm just wondering if there's any thinking about making the penthouse sort of half of itself, so that half could be the mechanical and half a true penthouse that's perhaps a little bit less sunk, or just as sunk as you've got it?
We did look at options like that, and because we needed to get the stair up there and the elevator, plus the owner felt, and this is obviously a speculative development nature, she felt that the amount of money that this complete restoration was taking, she needed to get a certain amount of floor area to justify that, and the floor area of the penthouse was part of that equation. I realize it's not a landmark issue, but that was the reason for getting this far.
You could put two of those AC units down on that porch outside of the game room. You know, I mean, I think there's options.
If I understand you, I think you're talking about this area.
That you'd see it outside, out your penthouse.
I think there's
You
a-
would.
I think the issue there might be more related to the section, if I could go back to that.
I get it,
If the AC was there, it would probably end up being about the same height as those chimneys, and there's a possibility that it might be visible from some sight line above the cornice, although admittedly less than what we have here. So if you feel that that's something that would be allowable, then we could certainly explore putting maybe one of the units there.
For me,
Yes,
for me,
Fred.
the question is whether to work with staff to get it better. Is it going to be good enough? I mean, I'm the guy who often says stuff on the roof is okay, but I think that in this case, it's not okay the way it is. And I sort of maybe want to see it again, but if others think that staff can work this out and that all of the equipment up on that roof can be relocated down into these wells or holes, maybe the penthouse slid back a little bit, something, changing it, it's sort of a big change, though, to just work out with staff. To me, that's the issue. I can accept the rest of it, I think, as it is.
Okay, I think I understand your concern that this cannot, you may want to see it again, but if,
Not if
Yes.
really are sure that it can happen in here. This stuff goes here, this stuff changes.
Like those being in the backyard, you know, there's other options, I think. It doesn't
Right.
seem to be lit.
We might be able to put it back here and lose the rear windows rather than the front. 'Cause
that's, I think, better, yes.
This seems more problematic because of sight lines from the street, whereas this one, by being further back and lower, that would be my feeling as going on.
Right, and if you can remove all three of them, because one of the things that, you did note, they are very prominent, and it's not really a vacant, property that's across the street, which theoretically will get built upon and obscure. It's actually a part of the playground, so that view is going to be, will continue. So why don't we just recommend that they work with staff to remove their current locations and then relocate them elsewhere at the lower level, so that
If we can be that specific about it.
we can be that specific, right? Okay, good. Why don't we do that then? Are there any other concerns? Okay, any other concerns? All right, good. So we can close the hearing. And Ari, will you read that into the record? Thank you.
In the matter of certificate of appropriateness in Manhattan, 118 West 76th Street in the Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District, the application is to construct a rooftop and rear yard additions. I'd like to note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Riverside West End Historic District, and I recommend approval finding that the proposed work will not alter, eliminate, or conceal any significant architectural features of the building, that the rear yard incursions, larger apartment buildings, and a school exist within the block, and proposed rear yard addition will not project more deeply into the center of the block than adjacent additions, that the proposed rear yard addition will not rise to be full height of the building, and the rooftop addition will be set back from the rear parapet, helping to maintain discernible aspects of the building's original massing and its relationship with neighboring houses in the row. That the height, volume, and simple stepped massing of the proposed rear yard addition will be harmonious with the building type and the character of the block, which feature rear additions and a variety of massing forms. That the materials of the rear addition, featuring brick cladding and metal-framed glazing, will be reflective of the domestic character of the building. That the proposed excavation will be designed and built in compliance with Department of Buildings regulations under the supervision of a licensed professional engineer to protect the building, and will be set back 5 feet from the property line to preserve planting green space. That except for the mechanical HVAC units on the roof, which we're going to make modifications to, none of the work at the roof and rear will be visible from any public thoroughfare. And in this case, HVAC units as well will not be visible from the thoroughfare. And that the cumulative effect of the size of the additions will not overwhelm the building. Yeah. And however, I find that the proposed HVAC units, in reference to what we said a moment ago, at the roof will be highly visible over the primary facade and will draw undue attention to themselves. Therefore, we recommend that the HVAC units be relocated to the lower portions of the roof to reduce the visibility, or the rear yard, sorry, to reduce the visibility at the, and the roof be reduced. No, we don't need for the roof to be reduced, just for the HVAC units to be relocated so that they are not visible.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This application's approved.
Okay, Commissioners, the next item is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan. It's 555 West End Avenue, located within the Riverside West End Historic District, Extension 1, docket number 170198, a collegiate Gothic-style institutional building designed by William A. Boring and built in 1907-08. The application is create a new entrance, install a canopy, create new window openings, replace special windows, construct a rooftop and rear yard additions, and modify the rear facades. And this was last presented at the public hearing of May 19th, 2015.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michelle Shabrami of the Preservation Staff. The application before you at 555 West End Avenue came forward at the May 19th public hearing to create a new entrance, install a canopy, create new window openings, replace special windows, construct rooftop and rear yard additions, and modify the rear facade. At that time, you had concerns about the visibility of the rooftop additions over the primary elevation. Specifically, you asked that the rooftop additions be modified or lowered to reduce the visibility, and that the mechanicals be reorganized. The revised proposal includes reducing the height of the penthouse by 6 inches, which lowered the 8th floor the same. The applicant has also eliminated the mechanical screens and moved the condensing units to the rear courtyard within an acoustical screen, and the fan units from the top of the bulkhead to the penthouse roof. Finally, the applicant modified the rooftop bulkheads by separating them into 2 bulkheads, and one is the elevator, one is the stair, which reduce the heights, and they're proposing to clad them in a gray stucco so that they read as mechanicals. The architect, Forrest Frazier of Tamark & Co. is here to discuss the proposal.
We'll reopen the hearing.
So moved.
Commissioners. So not to repeat too much of what Michelle said, but to move forward and go through the other slides we have, so you can see in elevation some of the things Michelle was talking about. We removed the screen completely. We removed all mechanicals from on top of the bulkhead, so some of the mechanicals went to the courtyard, and the rest of the mechanicals are sitting on the roof of the penthouse itself, and we further reduced the height of the penthouse as well. That is from the 87th Street elevation. In section, you can see how this now works. Much smaller bulkhead. By dividing the bulkhead into 2, we could have a varying heights of the bulkhead to the north of the project, which is most visible, is lower by 5 feet than what was previously proposed. Again, you can see this in plan. This bulkhead is now 5 feet above the roof of this penthouse, whereas this one is 8'6". All of these condensing units were moved down into the courtyard, and all of the fan units were moved to the roof of the penthouse as well. This is a plan of the courtyard showing where all of this, all those condensing units will be. They will be enclosed in a kinetics acoustical screen that will bring the decibel level well below what's required by code. Again, you can see how that will look. It's a metal enclosure that will be powder coated to match all of the existing brick in that courtyard. Again, from this angle, you can also see the further reduction in the bulkhead, as well as using a different material there to really make it go away that much more. This is a section through the courtyard that just shows that acoustical enclosure. We've set everything to the heights recommended by acoustical engineers. And since our unit is the closest to that, we can guarantee that it's going to be very quiet. This is what it looks like in the rear elevation, the previously proposed to the current proposed. To get into all of our view corridor renderings, this is from the Broadway median, and then this is zoomed in from the Broadway median, so this is the most visible location. Previously, you could see the equipment screen and bulkhead were very prominent. Now you can just see the trash vent and the bulkhead, the stair bulkhead to the south. This is moving down 87th Street towards West End Avenue, sort of mid-block. Again, you can see how the previous mechanical screen was reduced that much further. If you zoom in, you can see you can just barely see the top of the stair bulkhead from that angle. And then as we get closer to West End Avenue, zoom in that much more, you can see the mechanicals are completely eliminated. From West End Avenue, looking south, before the bulkhead and mechanicals were extremely prominent. Now they're completely removed from that. As the north bulkhead, that splitting it in two, the north bulkhead is that much less visible. Again, that's zoomed in from the same angle. This is from 86th Street, looking up West End Avenue. It's more or less the same visibility, although the reduction of 6 inches makes the rooftop addition that much less visible.
What is the clear height that you have within the occupiable space now?
9'6".
As a result? 9'6".
It was 10 feet, and we reduced the overall height of the penthouse by 6 inches, which reduced the interior ceiling height by 6 inches as well, from 10 feet to 9'6". This is, if you remember from the last presentation, there was a slot on 86th Street. This is looking into that alley where you can see previously we just had a wall around the courtyard, and now you're going to see a portion of that acoustical enclosure. So that's it for our presentation today, and thank you for your time.
All right, are there questions? Any questions? Okay, we can close the hearing then. Right, I think that there were clearly aspects of this, the overall proposal that the Commission strongly supported last time, including the restoration of this building, its adaptive reuse, the intervention, or the changes that they were proposing within, I think, at the end, the two entrances, and I think all those changes were welcome, and I think the Commission believed that they were appropriate. The outstanding issue was really the visibility of the rooftop addition, and I know several commissioners had actually recommended that there are ways to reduce the mechanical floors, which were 2 at that time, and I think a total of 17 feet. I think the current proposal is very responsive to that issue. They've taken away one entire sort of layer of mechanicals by relocating them to other portions of the roof or in the courtyard where they're in fact not visible or not so visible. And I think that has gone a long way. Also, I think just breaking up the massing of the mechanicals has made it read much more as mechanicals versus an entire sort of solid floor. So that's been very helpful as well. My only comment is that given still that there is visibility here, and just gauging from other rooftop additions, I think they could still reduce the floor-to-ceiling height of the penthouse. And I know we've given in 6 inches, but perhaps you could think about what is really the amount of floor-to-ceiling height that you actually need. So if you can, and I think it's okay to work with staff to see if that can be further reduced by another 6 inches or a foot, because it's a big portion, and I think it'll just overall reduce the visibility that is still there. But that would be my recommendation. Otherwise, I think this is a wonderful project and very, very appropriate. Other comments? Yes.
Yeah, I can make a comment. I think I agree with your recommendation. But I also just want to say I think the applicant has done a wonderful job in responding to our comments and thoughts, and has been brave perhaps in putting a lot of that equipment down in the courtyard and that sort of thing. But that's what was required, I think, to reduce the bulk on the roof, and they've done it, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Okay. Other comments? Yes.
I think the penthouse is here at 9'6" or at 9, and I'm fine with it remaining as it's been designed.
Okay. Other comments?
I'm with Adi on that one. I don't think the 6 inches is going to make too much of a difference. I think it's very visible, but I don't think it's a harmful thing to the building. I think you'll read the building, and there's so much really good restoration that's coming out of this. I think it's a really great application. They were very responsive, and I think it's fine as is.
Okay. Other comments? All right. The reason I would, and I understand and respect your point of view in this particular situation of whether 9'6" is appropriate, I am thinking more in terms of other enlargements that we have seen. And they may be visible, and they may be on individual landmarks. And I think the intent is that sometimes you can have visibility, and I think we all recognize that this is going to be visible. But I would only encourage that the applicant work with staff to try and reduce it to the point that it's still functional as a space, but at the same time, its visibility is reduced, given that this is an individual landmark as well. Does that make sense?
I think it's always great when they work with our staff.
Yes, I think so too. Our staff is excellent at making sure that applicants do the right thing. So, and again, I just want to commend the team. It's a great project, and it's wonderful that it's going to be reused in this manner. So, any other comments? Okay, so why don't we close the hearing, and John, you're ready for the...
Yeah, just taking a deep breath on this one.
Yeah, it's a long one. Okay.
The matter of docket number 17-0198, 555 West End Avenue in the Riverside West End Historic District, extension number 1. The application is to create a new entrance, install a canopy, create new window openings, replace special windows, construct a rooftop and rear yard additions, and modify the rear facades. I note that the style, scale, materials, and details of the building are among the features which contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Riverside West End Historic District Extension Number 1. I recommend approval with a minor modification. That the removal of modern paired doors and the modern security gate from the West End Avenue facade will not eliminate significant historic fabric. That relocating the historic interior vestibule paired wood doors will repurpose an historic interior feature and bring the facade closer to its historic appearance. That the creation of a new lobby entrance on West 87th Street by removing plain masonry, a small portion of the water table, and one section of a historic areaway wall from the West 87th Street facade, and installing a small granite ramp will provide barrier-free access in the least intrusive manner. that the proposed new entrance on West 87th Street featuring paired metal and glass doors and a beveled limestone surround providing access to the lobby will harmonize with the materials and details of the historic facade, that the proposed simple bronze canopy conforms to the shape of the new masonry opening and will not detract from the significant architectural features of the building, that the proposed granite cheek walls and planters with globe lights leading up to this entrance will help distinguish it as the main entrance to the apartments and is in keeping with precedent of lighting in front of buildings in this historic district, that the below-grade windows within the sunken areaway on West 87th Street are not special windows and are minimally visible from the street, therefore their infill with masonry will not eliminate historic fabric, that the historic wood brick molds remaining at window frames will be uncovered, repaired, or replaced to match the historic condition, that the existing iconographic leaded glass windows at the fourth floor were installed post-1940 and therefore their removal will not eliminate original historic fabric, that originally leaded glass windows existed only at the sixth floor projecting bay and were removed prior to designation, and their replacement with simple multi-pane windows will maintain a consistent fenestration pattern throughout the building, that the proposed change in operation of the transom windows throughout the building will not be perceptible from the street, and that otherwise the new 1/1 double-hung wood windows will match the historic windows in terms of configuration, operation, detail, material, and finish, that the removal of masonry infill from the barrel vault and recreation of the historic steel mullions and glazing pattern will restore this significant feature, that the existing roof has visible rooftop accretions, therefore precedence exists for a visible rooftop addition on this building, that the proposed new window openings in the blind arched panels and installation of inset cast stone within the quatrefoil openings at the 7th floor parapets at the West 87th Street and West End Avenue facades and the restoration of missing features and the central medallion without the religious iconography will be in keeping with the overall fenestration pattern and will maintain the appearance of the decorative motif while capturing space and incorporating the first floor of the rooftop addition. That the second story of the proposed rooftop addition will be set back from the primary facades and will be clad in limestone to harmonize with the materials palette of the building, that the design of the proposed rooftop addition featuring limestone cladding and punched metal window and door assemblies in a symmetrical composition will be compatible with the design and materiality of the building, that while the proposed penthouse addition will be highly visible in conjunction with the front facade when viewed from multiple vantage points, especially the corner of West Broadway and West 87th Street and the corner of West 86th Street and West End Avenue, it will be set back from the primary facades and clad in simple unadorned limestone, allowing it to harmonize and not compete with the ornate sculptural parapet. That the scale, massing, and materials of the two proposed metal-clad bulkheads set back on the roof of the addition are typical of rooftop mechanical equipment, will be minimally visible, and will not overwhelm the roofscape. That the removal of windows, excavation beneath the rear yard, raising the grade, and installing an 8-foot masonry wall will be minimally perceptible due to the presence of a one-story structure located behind a metal gate of the adjacent property. That the removal of the enclosed stair, a metal fire stair, and 6 feet of the rear facade and a portion of the barrel vault will be only minimally perceptible through a small area of visibility through a metal security gate on West 86th Street. That the proposed blonde brick cladding and fenestration pattern of the new rear facade will match the brick of the historic rear facade and configuration of the windows on the primary elevations, and that the proposed work will aid in the adaptive reuse of this former school building to residential without compromising the overall architecture or historic character of the building. However, I recommend that they work with staff because the penthouse is excessively visible over the front facade, and we recommend that the overall height of the penthouse be reduced as much as possible.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This application's approved.
Okay, Commissioners, the next item is item number 4 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan. It's an application for 639th Avenue, the Film Center Building Lobby, an interior landmark. It's docket number 166579, an Art Deco style interior lobby designed by Elijah Khan and built in 1928-29. The application is to replace light fixtures, replace and relocate the lobby desk and install doors, security turnstiles, a fire command station, and signage. This was first presented March 24th of 2015.
hearing was to replace light fixtures, replace and relocate the lobby desks, install doors, security turnstiles, a fire command station, and signage. So here is the existing view of the conditions of the lobby. Here is a rendered view of the previous proposal that was shown at the March 24th public hearing. There were some concerns with the proposed design, including the design and the scale of the light fixtures, as well as the design and the scale of the lobby desks. And there were some questions about how many penetrations would be made into the floor for the installation of the turnstiles and the glass doors. So to summarize the comments, basically it was recommended that a more restorative approach be taken to design the light fixtures. Also that the design of the lobby desk be restudied so that it would be a more clearly modern element, but also remain unobtrusive in the space. And finally, to more clearly show the impact of the installation on the historic flooring. So I'll turn it over to the owner and the architect who will present the revised design.
Okay, we can reopen the hearing.
So my name is Brian Steinwurzel. My family owns the building. We've owned the building, I think, since the early 70s. It was my grandfather's favorite building, one of the first that he actually, owned versus net leasing, which is how he got into the business. So Anthony Johnson is the architect that we hired. I just wanted to talk about it because it's important to my family and the building, and I think really the tenancy that we have there as well. So forgive me as I'm a layman and don't have a background in historic preservation, but I'll tell you what our plan is and what we've thought about since the last meeting, and any questions you have, please. So this is what the existing lobby looks like in the 1980s, 1988. I'm not exactly sure why, but we put these light fixtures in. They're very 1980s. They really, in my opinion, don't really go with the lobby. They never sort of fit. So we have them here. This is what they look like. Thank you. We have a security desk. It's not really that attractive. I think someone made an attempt to make it look like it went with the lobby, but it doesn't, in my opinion, fit. It actually blocks people coming in and out of the building. It's a little awkward, especially when there's a person standing here trying to ascertain who should be and who shouldn't be in the building. So there used to be, which is not here anymore, we removed it, a gate that closed off the service corridor from the main lobby. And there are still some, unfortunately, some penetrations in the floor there. So what we did since the last meeting is we found another turnstile that is actually glass so that you can see straight through it. And we think it takes up less of a, of the view, if you will, and it exposes more of the context of the lobby. We also changed the security desk to be more of a triangle. Everyone has had a different opinion. People look round, people look square. I actually like this one the best, and I'm glad that we got to this point because it really, brings into the context some of the other shapes that are, there and now obvious in retrospect, but not, some of the ones that we had looked at before to take into account. I think it's also a lot more of a minimalist to it, and something where you're not really caught to it. You sort of look past it. Which I like a lot. We also went through and changed the light fixtures, and I'm going to show you how we got to the idea about the light fixtures afterwards. This is the same thing from before. These Herculate doors are glass. They will penetrate the floor right in the same area where there's already penetration, so it doesn't disturb it any more than it did before. And it doesn't even touch the walls on either side. There'll be a little bit of a gap there. Am I missing anything? Okay, so what we did was we had gone and tried to get as many original drawings. We hired Christopher Gray. We hired pretty much anyone that we could find that knew how to get historical drawings, and we weren't able to come up with much. We came up with this from some books that had been written before, and we have a blown-up version of these, which were the lights before. You can see in this picture from, I guess, 1928, that the lighting in this picture was actually generated from the elevator, not from the lights themselves. And when you look at some of the lights, it doesn't look like they're even lit. So I'm not even sure if they were lights or what which ones were functional, which ones weren't. We can't find any other information, and we searched long and hard for it. So what we did is we went to oh, sorry. And this is a picture of what it looked like in the 1970s. Clearly, these are not in context. It's probably too bright for what it's originally, and I'm glad it doesn't look like this any longer. What we did was we went and found historic photos of other lobbies that were done by Eli Jacquin, and we started to find a theme that emerged in terms of the lighting in his lobbies. I'm just going to put this to the side for a second. We started to see more and more of these types of lights that were more rectangular in shape, and that I think added to the lobby without taking too much of the the design away from it from the lighting perspective. And so what we said was, rather than try to put too much lighting in and try to put in round fixtures, we said, why don't we take some of the square sort of looks from his prior lobbies, especially this one, which is the most similar to 639th Avenue. And we found this, which is a very subtle square fixture. It doesn't try to replicate some of the beautiful detail on the light fixtures that he created, because I don't think we want to try to create something that he didn't create. But I think that this, in a very subtle way, sort of lends to the character of what he had done previously. And the other thing, and I think this is probably even more important, is this is where the lights are right now from the 1988 LPC approval we had. And when we put the lights here, we won't be disturbing any of the walls or the ceiling or anything else about the lobby. So it's sort of a simple correction in my mind of what probably shouldn't have been done in 1988, and yet it, I think enhances and sort of brings back maybe what should have been done back then. This is the lobby desk, and again, I think it's more of a minimalist approach. We also changed the top to be black, and this I think even pops too much. I think we'll have something that's sort of subdued that doesn't catch your eye. These are the turnstiles that we found that again have glass doors, and we actually have these installed in another one of our buildings, and they work really well for that. This doesn't show a picture, but we have on a different page, the turnstiles and how we're limiting the penetrations that will be into the floor. And wherever we are making the penetrations, we know that the terrazzo can be repaired in those areas if we ever remove the turnstiles. So it doesn't cut into any of the brass or any of the areas that are more, I think, decorative. Anything on this here? So that was sort of what we did after our last meeting.
What's the material of the desk, the sides?
Bronze. It's Anthony Johnson at Rosen Johnson Architects. It's a bronze face and a stone top.
And a stone top, okay.
Can I ask?
Yes.
I think I was not here at the last meeting, so I'm sorry if you've already covered this, but if you don't mind, what was the reason that you decided to remove the desk from the center space?
The desk, the reason we want to put I'll say it this way, the reason why I want to put turnstiles in is because we've noticed, so after 9/11 in most of our buildings, we put turnstiles in, and it eliminated almost all of the petty theft that we have.
Yeah.
This building still suffers from that.
Yeah.
And we think that this will be a big enhancement to the tenants.
Yeah, I think that the turnstile that you found is much better than the previous one, but I'm just wondering if there's a way for you to keep the desk at the center with two turnstiles on either side? Is there enough room for that?
There isn't, and the problem is that there isn't enough room to have it and to have the amount of passageways we need and ADA. The other thing is that right now, if you were in there's a lot of people in the building. It's a high traffic area, a lot of guests and a lot of visitors, and the line backs up tremendously, and it causes this like big congestion area right in the center. So it's like an awkward thing to get in and out, especially out because the vestibule where the elevators open up isn't very big. And so what happens is like two elevators open up, they're full of people, and they have nowhere to go. So we're trying to actually clear out this area as much as possible so people can get in and out more quickly and it be secure.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, just that image that you had of the 1929 drawing or photograph, I guess it is. So it does seem to have, there are some light fixtures that are attached to that, right?
So
those, yeah.
So we found basically like a drawing that looks similar to this, and we had to blow it up to look at it. So none of the drawings, I think you may have a copy of it, that I've seen even show them lit. And none of the pictures that we have show anything similar to any of his other drawings. And none of the, I'm sorry, we have, right, this is the drawing. And so like this is the best we could find in terms of what it actually was between these two pictures. So we can't find anything that's remotely similar to it. And instead of trying to create something that no one has any, this is the best picture and this is the best drawing we have. We thought we'd just sort of stick to the same penetrations we have and keep it simple and not try to do too much.
Right.
Go ahead, and then after Michael.
But both images suggest sort of this kind of dropping, sort of almost earring-like image that kind of follows with the way that the kind of the cascading of the ceiling. So I don't think that an interpretation would be that difficult to render. Am I?
Let me push this over here. So these lights are in this. The ones that are shown on this picture are really right here.
Right there. Yeah.
Our concern about the lighting in the lobby is more this way. I think that going and trying to cut open these areas, run power, try to find a light fixture that meets New York City code or have one created is going to be a tremendous effort. And the achievement might get close to what it was, but it's not. I don't think it really enhances the lobby, and it doesn't really accomplish what we're trying to do in terms of replacing the 1988 fixtures that shouldn't have been there. So even if we did that, we would still want to replace these. And I think that this exercise might cause more harm than good.
Okay.
So that's.
Yes, Michael.
You talked a little bit about the number of people you have to handle, and if you slide that sketch thing over a little bit, the thing that I'm most concerned about is the turnstile location relative to the floor. And it strikes me that you've got a very decorative area of floor that you're kind of putting some of these on. Would it be possible to go to 3 instead of 4, allowing you to kind of preserve that center hole and free up some of those decorative areas?
Right now we have 3 walls.
Sorry, 2 instead of 3, so 4 instead of 3 posts. You see what I'm trying to get at? If you shifted it to the center, you could use that old hole. You would not be covering up those little black stripy things. You kind of would be off of some of the more decorative aspects of that floor. Would you not do it in terms of passages?
I think the challenge is if we sit there in the morning or in the afternoon, and I'm sure there's some great computer software that can model how many people we need to put through. It's just so many people coming in and coming out at the same time, and having only 2 lanes, one in and one out, I feel like it would be somewhat of a disaster. I think what we did was instead we tried to figure out where the penetrations would be, and in Terrazzo, the ability to repair that portion of it is actually
I appreciate that.
quite simple. So I wish this was never put in here. This was a mistake, in my opinion, and we should have had someone who cared more about putting it in a location that was something that could be repaired. But this is a big challenge for us, just from an operations perspective and a safety perspective. And I think it'd be hard. I think even 3 is probably too little. In a building of this size, if it was built today, there probably would be 6 elevators. There would probably be at least 4 and probably 5 openings for turnstiles. So we have all these people wedging into 4 elevators, and again, this small little vestibule where they come out.
Michael, your concern is about the number of penetrations?
No, it's not about the penetrations.
Yeah.
I think they've been very responsible about that. It's just that it's covering over in a relatively permanent way some of the more decorative parts of this floor. And as you can see from the photo montage, that floor is a significant part of the design. And if I was just asking if there was a way to kind of have it to sit more in the planar parts of the floor.
So I agree with you. So one thing we did when we did these turnstiles, there's an option. So the doors are glass, but also what we did is we made the interior guts of it glass as well. So you could see as much of it, and it becomes as
Oh, it's definitely much better.
Yeah. And I actually want to go back to the, I agree with the idea of, if possible, to have just 3 turnstiles, but to the lighting. So I know you don't like the 80s lights, but I actually think that they are more, or at least the kind of their circular form is more in keeping with this period of deco than what you're proposing now. And in great part because they sort of mimic the circles in the terrazzo on the floor. The kind of this circle held out with this rectangular arm. And maybe there's another version. I mean, maybe the ones that are on we don't see them in front of us, the fixture itself, so we don't see the material. The existing. But maybe there are ones that are more attractive or more, look a little bit more in keeping with the style. But I do think that the circular and uplit is somehow more in keeping and appropriate for this period.
Okay, other comments or questions? Yes, Kim, go ahead.
The size of the fixture, how does it compare to what's there and I think what's in the bottom for that building there? Yeah, that one. Because that seems to have up and, it glows and it has some uplighting in it. But this fixture, how does it operate?
We did when we saw this, so you see how this, again, not portraying some of the adjectives that you probably do, but it has the similar like striations, if you will. And this fixture sort of meets where striations come down, and then ours has these striations as well. And we have this existing fixture with the existing penetration, which is put in that spot, which actually, it seems like it makes sense to us. So we just fit the fixture uniformly inside of it. This one looks like it's actually a little bit larger.
Yeah.
Some of the others are smaller.
I think the scale is much smaller.
But I think what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to have a fixture that then started to dominate. The lobby was just more of a fading into the background.
This fixture is much smaller than in the older lobbies. Partially, we're trying to fit it within the little area that's sort of allotted for it, where the junction box is.
Does the current lighting not work for you, or is...
It's less than 1 foot candle, so it's very, very dark when you walk in. It takes a couple minutes for your eyes to adjust.
Okay, right. I know this was a comment that we heard during the public testimony about somehow ensuring the right ambience and lighting there, and recognize, of course, that there are issues of safety and security, but also that there's a certain sort of lighting intent in the space itself. I know that the last time around, which you may have not been here, there was a light fixture which was doing some kind of cascading and really didn't work, and was quite just was very bulky. Right, and I think that even in those pictures they may look okay, but when we saw the actual model, we were not happy, and so they've gone back to something incredibly simple and understated, but in some ways. I would agree that somehow the uplighting actually sort of works, and we can keep on looking at fixtures and trying to find the right one. But I think the intent is more about just how do you illuminate the space in a way which is...
It's still going to be underlit by modern standards for sure. With the new fixture, it will still be under 3-foot candles. I think the guidelines are 10 to 15, 5 to 10. Space like this, so it'll still be underlit. It will not be bright by any means. And the photograph probably doesn't show it accurately. It's hard to get it as dark as it really is in a photograph and have it show anything.
And again, we didn't find any drawings that show what the lighting was like over here in the lobby, sort of towards the entranceway. But in the lobbies that we found that were similar to him, they were more rectangular and square than they were round.
And is it possible to just increase the lighting within the fixtures that you already have, or is that not possible?
I think you'll just get more glare because of the way it uplights.
Yeah, it's really, they're maxed out in terms of their wattage. Sure. This is Stephen Bernstein, who's our lighting designer. Fine, Benjamin Bernstein Lighting. The fixture, this particular fixture, I should point out, is predominantly an uplight. The lighting element is within this. This glows, so it predominantly will give you this effect. What it does, though, is it lessens the contrast here so that it doesn't divide the lobby into two parts. There's a little bit of a smoother transition, but this will always read much more strongly given this sort of fixture and the way that the light is delivered.
Yeah, I think that I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the plan and the pattern on the floor sort of should tell you what the lamps look like, or might. The plan with the circle and the arm.
This one here?
Yeah, the plan. Those, to me, should be the forms of the lamps, but and
That's what exists.
which is what exists, closer to what exists, yeah.
Right, although I would say that, I mean, that may be very appropriate to have a more circular sort of form, but I'm not sure. I feel that that's the only form that can fit here. You can draw from that motif, but I think you can also see other examples that they've shown of the same architects that have used this Art Deco style and had more rectangular sort of shapes and...
Prismic, yeah.
Or prismic, but rectangular prisms. So, all right, just on, are there other comments or questions? Yes, Fred.
Kind of a comment, I guess. I think the problem here is that we don't have reliable information on what the light fixtures really were, although we have wonderful, reliable, extant both historic photos as well as existing buildings with his light fixtures in it. So the problem is, we often face these problems here. Do you make something up based on some evidence of something, or do you shy away from that? And usually the making it up is also incredibly expensive. So I think that's our dilemma here. So that I think you're presenting an off-the-shelf fixture, as I understand it. This is an off-the-shelf fixture that might at least light the space, if not produce the fixture itself. But the quality of light might have been more or less what we might have expected in the original situation. So, I mean, I can agree that the quality of light in there now, not having ever been in there, but just understanding it, that if it's very dark and it has these bright spots, given the condition currently, that some other rectangular solution, which I think is as appropriate as a circle, but we don't know what was there, that the rectangular solution which you're proposing may well be as good as it's going to get in this situation. I mean, I don't know, that's stumbling around for an appropriate, a case for an appropriateness in this case. It also, I will point out, it's incredibly reversible. So in the future, if something is found more definitive, or your family wishes to change it out again, hoping you stay with the ownership because it seems like you've been a good owner for a long time, that's possible to do with reversible. So anyway, long way of saying, I think I could find my way to say that this could be appropriate based on those sorts of caveats.
Okay. Shall we go into discussion then? We can close. That's okay, that's fine. We can close the hearing then. All right, other comments?
The desk. I know we wanted a less obtrusive desk from last time when they presented with the larger round desk, but somehow I think the other desk is kind of temporary looking. It's very, very small. I mean, it's going from one end to the other, where it was a little too big, and now it's very small.
Right.
Hardly even notice it.
Right. I think that was part of the direction that was given to make it, to make it as unobtrusive as possible. And I think the other thing was not to make it look necessarily as something that was created at that time, to in fact have maybe a more sort of modern interpretation, if I remember correctly. So that was part of the direction as well. So keep it very simple and streamlined. And I think from that perspective, I think that that their proposal in terms of the desk is actually much better than it was before. And
Can I just ask about that?
Yeah.
Was there discussion the last time about the turnstile and the desk, all of it moving closer to the front door, so that there's more room to understand the dominant feature here, which is the ceiling and the elevator in the back space of behind the elevator? You know, I mean, now everything's kind of crammed to the back, so whatever you do is competing with the historic material. But if it was moved closer to the front, and maybe you'd already.
I think there's also a space constraint with that, because there's a passageway that comes from a direction. Olivia, could you just point that out?
Circulation from this passageway right here. So there's also a building entry on 44th Street.
So the turnstile basically guarded both of them.
There's a building entry here. So in order for the turnstiles to serve both points of ingress, it would need to remain here and not get pulled forward.
Right, and I mean, there is a sort of a real problem or issue, which is about lobbies and now the level of security that's being proposed in them. And I think in the 1920s it was an issue, but I think now it is. And so I think the approach has generally been trying to work with applicants to find a way that they could increase the security, but at the same time be really respectful to in these few cases that we have, which are interior lobby spaces that are designated landmarks. Yes?
I think I'm ready to find appropriateness as is. I think I was probably one of the loudest whiners about the obtrusiveness of the original desk and the idea that I can almost not see it. I like. I'm with Fred on the notion of the lighting. Perhaps someday there is a perfect answer to it, but as it stands, I think it's appropriate. I love the idea that they made the effort with the turnstiles to go with glass, so you can actually see the features through it. And again, just to reiterate what someone else said, that I think we have an owner who's an excellent steward of this building and have made a really strong effort to do what's appropriate. So I'm in as it is.
Okay. Other comments? Yes, you're not?
No, I want to just go back for 1 second to the idea of the desk in the middle and the turnstiles on either side, but that if the desk were turned 90 degrees, so it's a long, sort of a lozenge shape, which means its long side would face the secondary entry, and its short side would face the primary entry. And it would be sort of so you'd see so it would be in the center of the space still, but it would be a narrow, what you'd see when you walk in from the main entry is kind of a very narrow table, almost this. You see what I mean? It's the current desk on its side, 90 degrees.
But then you'd be blocking the main feature
of
the building. You're going to block that back wall.
Well, that back is.
Even if it's paper thin, you're still going to be blocking the view to that back wall, which is, I think, one of the major
I think one
features.
of the advantages of moving the desk is to, in fact, expose the back wall, which is beautifully designed, and that the current desk, which was put in at some point, it was not a part of the historic context, and so. that relocation, along with, I think, the turnstiles, and I appreciate also that it's now in a much more transparent material. And I actually think that even though there are, I guess, 3 turnstiles, the location of those turnstiles I think, are in keeping or, in fact, work with the geometry of the floor. So that doesn't also seem like it detracts. If you had 3 posts, then it'd be in the middle of the main. I don't know how that would work, actually. But so I think, I mean, my recommendation is that the relocation of the desk actually will bring back more view to that wall that you see, not to the turnstiles, to the backdrop, which is where you have the elevator banks and the turnstiles. Okay. Are the commissioners willing to support this as is?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. We already closed the hearing, so we can move to decision. Kim, do you want to read that, please?
Okay. In the matter of 630 9th Avenue, the application is to replace light fixtures, relocate lobby desks, and install doors, security turnstiles, and a fire command station and signage. I recommend approval, finding that the removal of the existing light fixtures and lobby desks will not damage or eliminate any significant historic fabric, that the design of the proposed light fixtures is based on historic documentation of light fixtures originally found in other design lobbies, and therefore will integrate well with the overall design scheme, that the placement of the proposed lobby desks will cause minimal obstruction of the long east-west corridor and will result in improved visibility of the mosaic wall at the rear of the elevator lobby and improved circulation, that the streamlined design and bronze metal, marble, and glass material palette of the proposed lobby desk and security turnstiles will harmonize with the historic wall, floor, and ceiling finishes of the lobby, that the attachment of the lobby desk and turnstiles using small penetrations through the historic terrazzo and stone floors will be minimal and reversible, that the installation of frameless, transparent doors set back from the main lobby space within the passageway at the West 44th Street lobby corridor will maintain the visual continuity of the lobby spaces, that the proposed installation of the fire command station behind the upper portion of an existing historic glazed door with small signage installed within an existing metal sign frame above the door will be discreet, and that the proposed work will not diminish the special architectural and historic character of this interior landmark.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? This application is approved.
Okay, Commissioners, the next item is item number 5, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn. Borough of Brooklyn, it's 863 St. Mark's Avenue, located within the Crown Heights North Historic District, docket number 162298. This is a residential building built in 2006. The application is to alter the facade and construct rooftop and rear yard additions. This was last presented at the public meeting of May 12th, 2015.
We control the vertical.
Waiting for it to fix.
Hmm?
Can I share yours?
Oh, you didn't get one. You certainly can.
I think we ran out.
You ran out.
Do you have one more of these?
It's all right.
That's fine, we can share. Oh, we saw this.
We did. Let's see what they changed.
It's terribly ugly.
It's wicked.
Thank you.
Start with a handout. This is a proposal that you saw both in February and May, and it's for rooftop and rear yard additions. Caroline K. Levy from the Preservation Department. This is the building, which was built prior to designation and on an empty lot within a row of limestone buildings. Here's more of the context. If you recall, the proposal was for rooftop and rear yard additions, and the current condition, the previous proposal, and this is what is currently being proposed. Earlier, it was for a stucco-clad facade, and the commissioners, in reviewing the proposal, which included a large rooftop and rear yard addition, the commissioners were comfortable with the bulk on the rear, which is visible through a gap in the street wall on Bergen Street, as long as the recladding of the facade was done with materials and details that were more sympathetic to what was going on in the row. So instead of the stucco, they are now proposing a limestone facade with a balustrade up at the top, and they've detailed the entrance with a little more exuberance. The commissioners asked them to look at the stoop and putting back a stoop. The problem is that the parlor floor is much higher than what's going on either side, so any stoop that went back would be much taller, so they are proposing a grade level entrance. Also, another concern was at the front of the building, and this is a grandfathered condition, there's presently a parking pad, just concrete. So the new proposal calls for a grasscrete pad along with some stone paving and some greenery, which is just in the front and along the side here, and as well as a fence, which there are fences in the other houses in the row. And just to take you through a little bit more detail, you can see the rooftop addition in this axon. And plans. This is what the rear of the house looks like. It's currently lined with siding, and you can see it's visible from the other side of the block. This is a section showing the existing profile of the house. This is what was initially presented, and then they revised it last time to this massing. This shows the original, the existing condition, the original proposal, the current proposal. And this is an elevation from the rear. And this is what you see from the street, Bergen Street of the rear addition. The applicants are here. Mary Derricks is here if you have any further questions.
Are there any questions? Okay,
So this
question,
is now limestone,
limestone.
not stucco to look like limestone.
No, it's actually limestone.
Limestone pieces.
Okay, good. Any questions? The commissioner satisfied with these changes? Okay, so the questions, are the commissions have any comments or, yes? Any? Yes?
I think it's significantly improved. I think that the use of the real material, will help this former eyesore fit a little bit better into its context. I think that the addition of the balustrade helps that as well. I would recommend that the applicant work with the staff to make sure that the details of how the limestone is molded, cut, assembled, etc., are appropriate. It's kind of hard to tell from the drawings what the exact intention is, but it's certainly moving in the right direction. It certainly is taking cues from its neighbors, and it will result in a much better installation. I think that I can accept the argument about the stoop. I think that the development of the front yard with the grasscrete and the pavers is a much more felicitous compromise between what's there now and the neighbors' conditions. I think the back, they might want to look just at the top to maybe add a little bit of detail so it doesn't look totally jarring, but I think the volume's okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes?
It's set back a little bit from the adjacent townhouses. The facade is, the front facade, sorry, is set back. Existing. Yeah, and I'm just wondering if now that it's limestone, if it should be flush or closer and aligned with the face of the existing.
The only problem with that is they weren't intending to replace the windows, well, the connection between the windows and the front facade.
Uh-huh.
Right.
It's a lot of inches what you would get would be more like sort of a fortress with a really, really thick facade. And then it would look probably strange. It would be necessary, I guess, to tear down the building, which wasn't part of the proposal, to have it make it look like kind of like the other buildings.
Okay, I would agree with everything that Michael said, and if they could also just work with staff on the details of the fence. I think they have some photographs that shows that there are fences there, but just make sure that the style is consistent with the neighborhood and also just the detailing of the pavers that they have, which includes landscaping as well. Okay, all right, great. Michael, do you want to read that
Sure.
into the record?
Okay.
With those few comments.
Regarding 863 St. Mark's Avenue in the Crown Heights North Historic District, the application is to alter the facade and construct rooftop and rear yard additions, noting that this red brick building with curb cut and parking space in the front yard was constructed in 2006 prior to the designation of the Crown Heights North Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the removal of the existing steep L-shaped stoop from this recently constructed building will remove an awkward feature that competes with the historic stoops found within the row, that the floor level of the parlor floor is higher than the neighboring houses in the row. Therefore, the installation of any stoop would not align with other stoops in the row, and the discrepancy would call undue attention to this feature, that the proposed window and door alterations at the first and second floor will repeat the facade's existing fenestration pattern, creating unity in the facade, that recladding the existing brick facade with limestone to match the limestone masonry of adjacent houses and adding decorative panels and banding details will provide a level of materiality and articulation that is consistent with the historic features of adjacent row houses, allowing the house to better relate to the other buildings in the row. That the increasing height of the front facade by a single story and adding a limestone parapet, balustrade, will fill in a gap at the street wall of the row's roofline, that the upper floor of the proposed two-story rooftop addition will be set back from the street wall and will be only minimally visible from great distances from within the park across the street, that installing ironwork, a permeable surface grass-crete parking pad, small areas of planting, and a stone walkway will soften the areaway, which is presently a solid concrete parking pad. That the existing rear vinyl-sided facade of the building does not relate well to the adjacent brick row house facades, and that the construction of a full-height brick rear addition will be more sympathetic to its context within the block, which is visible from Bergen Street through a gap in the street wall. That the massing of the rear addition, which rises 3 stories and sets back for an additional 3 stories, is consistent with the stepped configuration of most of the houses in the row, which figure 3-story L's or additions. That, while the upper stories of the house project further into the rear than adjacent houses, the view from the public thoroughfare is minimal, and the improvement in the materiality and detailing of both front and rear facades compensates for the added bulk in the rear, and that the cumulative alterations will allow the building to better relate to the row and to the Crown Heights North Historic District. However, I recommend that the applicant work with staff to refine the details of the front facade and examine the details of the fence and the rear facade at the top.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Application's approved.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, the last item is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan. It's 807 Park Avenue, located within the Upper East Side Historic District, docket number 157491. This is an altered apartment building originally built as a Romanesque Revival neo-Renaissance style residence designed by Neville and Bagg in 1898-99 and altered in the 1980s. The application is to demolish the building. Well, the application was to demolish the building and construct a new building. The proposal has been revised, as you'll see today, and this was last presented on March 24th of 2015.
Morning, Commissioners. Lisa Schaefer, Preservation Staff. As Jared said, you last saw this in March, and once again, the application is to construct a new building on the site of a late 19th century 5-story tenement, which was substantially altered in the 1980s with the addition of 6 stories. And at the last meeting, the commissioners who were present asked that the applicants revise the design to incorporate the existing remnant of the 19th century tenement, and the applicants have responded and with a new proposal, which they will present to you now.
We'll reopen the hearing.
Good morning. Scott Duno with
He's coming back.
PBDW Architects. I'm joined by Sam White with PBDW, Bill Higgins, and Shelley Friedman. So just briefly to revisit how we got where we are today. We're talking about on the left, the 12-story existing building. It reads as 11 stories on the street, but it's actually 12. The building of designation was a 5-story tenement building. And you can see the existing building goes to that point there. I want to report that just Friday we did some paint stripping tests. Took a long time to make this happen, but it happened. We found that the brick underneath the paint is a gray, very dark gray with hint of brown to it, unusual along Park Avenue. The paint on top of it is an elastomeric paint. We tried 6 strippers, 2 of them worked from each of 2 manufacturers. Both of them are the strongest strippers that that is their standard product. Took 24 hours of dwelling time for that to work. A couple of concerns with that are, one, that it's an elastomeric coating and we're not sure why that was put on. Typically you do that if there's some sort of water infiltration problem going on. And the chemicals, we're concerned about the chemicals using them on a brick of this age. It's very soft brick and getting it absorbed. And also we just don't know what the condition of all that brick is. So in the scheme that we're presenting today, we are showing leaving the brick painted for those reasons. And just quickly to revisit, in the middle you can see the fragment, as we call it, of what is left of the original building. It's the brickwork on floors 2 through 5. and the 2 columns at the first floor. The storefront, the first floor cornice, the 5th floor cornice would have all been removed. So that's kind of the basis of what we're working with. And the building that was behind that was also removed when the current building was rebuilt in the 80s. So we are maintaining 12 stories. We're increasing the height floor to floor. We're limited in height by the street wall of the adjacent building. So this is the existing building. It's sort of neither low nor high, as you see on Park Avenue. We're kind of we're in the middle. This is the proposed building here. So we're aligning the top of our building here with the adjacent street wall. This is the back of the building. That is increasing in height, but actually the building is 6 feet shallower than the existing building, so that's moving back. So when we're looking at the current design for this, we looked at the fragment and what principles we draw from there. So we are pulling the existing pier dimension up into the new construction. We're creating a new hierarchy of cornices. We're rebuilding one at the first floor where there was one and introducing a heavier one at the top of the 12th floor. And then there are 2 sort of intermediate ones at the 2nd floor and the 5th floor to restore this hierarchy of base, shaft, and capital. The windows, we are using the proportions of the existing buildings in our new windows, proportions and sizes. We have 2 basic types of windows, one that's on a living room floor and one that's on the bedroom floor. The windows are set back to match the setback at the 5th floor, which is 6 inches. The lower floors are deeper set than that, but because we're building above the 5th floor, we're using that as our precedent. So this is the proposed design. At the first floor, we're infilling with new limestone at the entrance, a new cornice above the first floor of painted metal. At the top of the 5th floor, a smaller painted metal cornice, and then the new construction going up, and then a large new painted metal cornice at the 11th floor. And then at the 12th floor, we're retaining this sort of lantern element that we've always had as part of the design. At the back, it's a stucco finish, actually pretty reminiscent of what is there now. So this is enlargement of the first floor with the limestone surrounding the main entries, wood entrance doors. The spandrel panels here and above, we're introducing header courses of brick, a brick that's similar in color to the limestone, Indiana limestone that we're proposing. The header courses give it an interesting texture. We want to differentiate that, but not too strongly here. The fragments, spandrel panels, have a variety of different patterns and textures to them. So we want to do something that evokes that, but doesn't overwhelm it. At the 6th floor, right above the fragment, you can see the new cornice element here, and then the taller living room windows. Here in plan, you can see the articulation of this facade with the piers, and this is the profile of the 5th floor below it. So we're very similar to what that profile is. One element that we're doing is retaining the corner windows that we had originally proposed. This site is unique in that you have views up and down Park Avenue because of various setbacks to that. But we're maintaining that width of the pier coming up into the new glass element. This is a typical living room floor without the cornice below it. Bedroom floor with the smaller windows that are still the same proportion as the windows in the fragment. And then the 12th floor with this lantern element. We've made these French doors with a French balcony, so there's a railing coming across that now that is a nice cap to this rising facade. And that's where we stand.
All right, thank you. Are there questions? Yes, do you have a question?
I don't think it's a question.
Okay, any questions? All right, so in that case, we can close the hearing. I know that This project had come to us several times, and I was, okay. Well, I just want to know we received. Okay. Well, first, let me just say what we've received based on this current proposal. We received a letter from the Friends of the Upper East Side, and I think they're grateful that we had asked, the Commission had asked them to find ways to integrate the 5-story tenement building into the proposal. However, they note that they believe that the proposal needs to be further refined, and the addition must either complement its lower stories or create a dynamic contrast. Okay, well, and we've also received testimony from Mary Diericks, who's a historic preservation consultant, and from neighbors of 815 Park Avenue and 799 Park Avenue. And, well, I'm going to ask my staff to just perhaps, if you can just summarize these things in the point. Okay, thank you. So, there's just a lot to read and try and cull out. So if they could just do that, we could in the record. But just going back to what I was saying, that this was a project that came before it was being proposed to take down the fragment. I think I may have been one of the people in the minority who felt that I could find appropriateness with removing the fragment, given some of the arguments that were presented to us. However, I think the majority of the commissioners really felt that it was important to retain and incorporate the fragment into any redevelopment of the site, given that it was acknowledged in the report itself that they had some features that were, in fact, extant and historic. And we asked the applicants to go back and redesign. I think we had seen in one of the presentations a sort of melding of their modern design with the fragment, which I think the Commission obviously didn't believe that was a serious proposal. And at this point, they've gone back. And I think for me, that if we retain the fragment, it poses a different design challenge for the architects to be respectful of that, but also to recognize that the 6 or 7 stories above that are contemporary. And I think that their proposal has been very respectful of that. And I think they've really drawn from sort of the proportions of the historic fragment, but used in a more contemporary manner. I think, in fact, the fragment will remain and be visible, and I think that's important to the district. But they've used a color palette, materials, and sizes of the fenestration and detailing, which I think is very respectful. And I must say I'm quite pleased with the way the design has come out and find it very appropriate. Yes.
I agree with everything you've said. I think it's terrific that you've kept the fragment, and I think the contrast in the upper stories and sort of maximizing those corners is really effective. The only piece that I still have an issue with and questions about are what you're calling these metal cornices. And I can understand it kind of conceptually that they bracket or they frame the historic kind of apart from the new. But I think that it actually, materially, it confuses things a bit. It doesn't act like a cornice. It doesn't act, which is to say, in that it doesn't act, it doesn't look like a cornice, a ornamental cornice. It looks sort of like yet another material or element that it doesn't seem to be integrated in either the upper stories or in the fragment itself. It just seems a bit more than it needs to be, and I think it could be a masonry piece. So I have questions about just that element.
Is there a recommendation that you want to put forward? And-
I was looking at it, but I don't know if it's about, it's one of the two materials. I mean, either returning to limestone or to the brick, but something, I think that the masonry is, it's about kind of continuing with the masonry and either having it be more contemporary or more historic, but this third element just doesn't read yet in my mind.
Okay, is that something they could work with staff on to sort of bring back?
I'd like to hear what others think.
Okay, all right. Yes, other comments? Yes, please do.
I have no problem with the cornice. I just want to make a comment or two on the overall philosophy here, which has been engaging us for several months, I think, and I think it's a very interesting problem and a very interesting challenge for an architect and for this commission as well. To me, I think we've risen to the challenge in both ways, meaning the architect and the commission, I hope. We live in a world where kind of a pluralistic approach is beginning to take hold more significantly than it did in the modern era, when this kind of an approach would have been anathema, I think. We're combining two things, so it's kind of almost seamlessly. But I don't know, it's the preservation movement, it's a whole series of things which have changed attitudes since the modern era. And it seems to me as if this is a valid approach as well, when it's handled well. I think it's maybe trickier to handle it well. I was one, along with our chairwoman, who I think approved of the scheme to remove the fragment. I did so quite reluctantly because I thought having that fragment there was somehow enriching. But there were those who didn't think that. One of those people, I think, has the same name as the first name of the firm here that is representing us today. He didn't believe that, and I fully respect that opinion. But I think there is this other viewpoint where a fragment can become part of a whole, and it's a different era. And I just wanted to make that comment, and both are valid in a way. And I think that what we see here today is generally a fine building. I did question in my own mind whether limestone on top of brick was the right thing to do, or whether a light brick, the two surrounding buildings I think are brick. But I can live with this, and I can also accept that working with staff to work that detail out, and perhaps a cornice detail as well, would be acceptable to me. But I just wanted to go on record and say that this has been, to me, a very interesting process and a very current. It's an issue that we might see more of, and I think this was worth everybody's while to work through it slowly and look at some options and come to, I hope, a conclusion.
Okay, others, yes.
Yeah, I agree with what Fred just said, and I would expand upon it a little bit. I think that this building, in an interesting way, carries forward a conversation that Landmarks in New York City has brought up in a few different locations, and I think that this building, along with, let's say, the Duane Park building with the setback glass block thing, and a few others that escape me to cite at the moment, is an example of our forcing an architect and developer to reckon with an imperfect historic condition. And I think that the architect has risen to the challenge and has created a building that integrates this fragment in an architecturally successful and honest way. And I know that the architect struggled with the aspect of the project that seemed to kind of be in some way dishonest or dishonorable in some way, this retention of a little scrim, this 2 brick thick element that had nothing behind it. But I think that for me, the nicest detail of the project is one that they completely glossed over, which is, if you look at the axonometric, you see there's a little slot window behind the fragment. That'll, back. Yeah. That's to the left, and I would assume to the right as well. That makes manifest the fact that this is a fragment, and that takes advantage of the site condition, an alley on one side and a projection on the other, to heighten the effect of the fragment as a preserved element within the fabric of a restored building or a new building. And I think it works very well using geometry and other, proportion, other devices to weave this anomalous artifact into the design of a successful, properly proportioned new building. I think that I would say to Adi, take a look at the detailing of the windows, where you see the steel plate detail that is kind of created in the cornices is reused as a major motif, I think, in the building. And for me, it's that detailing that makes the cornices kind of rise to the level of being integrated into the palette of the building as opposed to being a one-off. And I would just lastly encourage the applicant to pursue the stripping idea. I think that if the stripping were something that was feasible, it would heighten the artifact's integrity and relate it even better to the palette of materials that they have. So I think it would be a very interesting interplay.
Right. Any other comments? Okay, I just want to note the testimony we just now received, and I think both parties have said that they raised concerns removing the historic facade and reinstalling that it could damage the facade, and that's not really historic preservation. I think that the issue is really about, in terms of the process in incorporating this facade into the design, may require removal and reassembling? Is that what it is? Because I'm not sure what they're speaking about. Is that what they are? I'm sorry, maybe the applicants can speak to that, yes.
My goal is to leave it in place.
Okay.
Start demolition and see what's behind the wall.
Okay.
I think we'll have to hold on that until we understand it
All
better.
right.
But the floors behind it will all come out.
Right. But when they did the existing building, we were able to leave that facade in place and replace all the flooring behind. So it may be stable enough that it can stay there again.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that, we encourage you to obviously look for the best method to retain the fragment. I think this is, again, it's a complicated challenge, not only in terms of design, but structurally and construction. But I would agree with my commissioners, my fellow commissioners, who noted that that in the end, I think what they have here is really sort of an exemplary design and way of integrating a fragment into modern or new architecture. All right, so I think we're ready to vote then. We can close the hearing. Fred, do you want to? So just on the issue of the cornice, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but we can ask the applicants to work with staff on that issue, but I think that there may be, I don't have an issue with the detailing, and I think the other commissioners don't. You're okay with that, too?
It's never really a problem to say work with staff.
The catch-all? Okay, all right.
So in the matter of 807 Park Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District, the application is to demolish the building and construct a new building with a fragment. I recommend approval, noting that the retention of the first 5 floors of the existing facade will preserve the remaining fragment of the historic 1898 building, which was altered extensively shortly after designation. that the height at the street wall of the proposed building is in keeping with the height of existing historic apartment buildings on Park Avenue, that the overall massing of the building with its penthouse setback is in keeping with the presence of penthouses on apartment buildings throughout the Park Avenue Historic District, that although contemporary in design, the new portion of the facade recalls some of the qualities of the historic remnant and other Park Avenue buildings, including a large amount of masonry, punched window openings, and a symmetrically arranged facade. That the more abstract reference to the historic facade found in the design of the upper stories will allow the historic remnant to be legible and stand out against the stories above. That the proposed new facade, consisting of a base incorporating the historic fabric, a modern limestone brick shaft, and a metal cornice surmounted by a crowning element, relates to the materials, color palette, and tripartite facade organization of the historic facades along Park Avenue. That the layered details and materials of the new facade are commensurate with the depth and articulation of the historic base. That the brick and limestone materials palette at the upper portions of the building are in keeping with the historic fragment and help to unite it with the base in terms of color and texture. That the glazed corners at the upper stories and strip windows at the base serve as an architectural element that serves to unify the building as a whole. That the glazed corners and step windows are a unique response to this particular site, in which the plane of the front facade is proud of its neighbors along Park Avenue. That the entrance infill fits neatly in the opening created between the historic cast iron piers and cornice above and relates to other entrances to large apartment buildings along Park Avenue. That the glazing at the top of the building is a strong architectural element that serves as a visual cornice termination. That the rear of the building will be obliquely visible through a break in the street wall from East 74th Street, and that the design and materials of the rear facade are consistent with other surrounding apartment buildings, and that the work will result in a building that will reinforce the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This application's approved.
Bob searched for 12 years for another place. I'm not sure yet.